gang, Ken Hackathorn, Bill Wilson, another episode of the Gun Guys. Listen, don't forget that if you want to follow what's going on the Wilson YouTube channel, go ahead and press that subscribe button right now so you don't miss out on a lot of good information coming your way. Now, Bill and I are going to discuss something today which I think needs to be discussed, and that is the effects of gunshot wounds, particularly handgun wounds, to people and critters. In that what people think happens when you shoot somebody in self-defense or when you shoot an animal when you're hunting is often not realistic. And it's perpetuated often by the fictional stuff like movies and television. There's a lot of factors that take place, and one of the reasons I really want your input from this, Bill, is because you've hunted most of your life. I mean, you've been to Africa numerous times. You've probably shot and killed more wild hogs than anybody that I know of. So you have some pretty good insight to what happens when critters get shot. As far as people getting shot, we now live in an era where you can watch surveillance videos on TV or on your computer and see what happens when people really get shot. And it's often dramatically different than what people think. For example, we know that a central nervous system hit in anything that breathes, brain or spinal column, almost always cause an instant incapacitation. Or they put it this way, in the real world, if they're humans, they quit fighting.
Yeah.
If it's hydraulic zone hits, where you're relying upon a loss of blood pressure, it takes a while. Now, with people, we have what we call psychological stops and we have physiological. Psychological means people can get hit in the elbow with a .25 automatic and go down like they got hit with a Mack truck.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with physiology. It's just that their brain said, I'm shot, fall down. On the other hand, we have people sometimes that are shot with non-survivable wounds.
Sometimes multiple times.
And continue fighting.
Yes.
So I tell people you've got to understand what happens, and I think you particularly have done so much hunting and shot so many critters, you know that it isn't always what you think it is. And I'm curious that I'm sure the viewers will find it interesting, your observations about, one, bullet placement, and number two is, shall we say, what happens when they get shot?
Well, it's several different factors. Obviously, any time in hunting and obviously a self-defense situation, Ken, it's all about bullet placement. It's bullet placement, bullet placement, bullet placement. I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of magic bullets you got, doesn't matter what caliber it is, doesn't matter if you're close or far, it comes down to bullet placement.
Bingo.
That is absolutely number one. Then it comes into bullet construction, but still yet foremost, bullet placement.
Yep.
If you want to incapacitate an animal, for example, hunting, and you're right, I have a lot of experience at this. I've killed tons of game. I've been to Africa 28 times. I've been doing this hunting thing since like 1968.
Wow.
And killed a lot of hogs. Killed in their neighborhood of 3,000 or something like that. 400 something year to date this year.
Excellent.
So anyway, I have some experience on bullet placement and what happens. And in addition to what happens when I actually shoot a live animal, I do a lot of bullet testing for some of the major ammunition companies and what really happens on a bullet in a real situation. And I do that by going out and harvesting a hog, bringing it into camp. We set it up, broadside. We put tubs of water behind it, shoot through it with a bullet, recover the bullet in the water, and see what happens to it when you shoot through actual bone and flesh.
Yeah.
And see what the bullet really does.
Cool.
And that's so much more accurate than any gel test you could ever do.
Yeah.
Because now you're seeing what it would really do when you shoot an animal.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, the whole key is bullet placement. And when I say bullet placement, if you want to incapacitate that animal immediately, it's just like you mentioned earlier. It's a central nervous system. It's it has to be a spine or a brain shot. That's the only two things that will incapacitate an animal instantly. And even then, sometimes they'll thrash around for a while, but they're not going.
They're not fighting back.
They're not going anywhere.
They're not attacking you.
Yeah, and if you knock one down with a central nervous system spine shot, for example, and it does get back up, what that means is you did not sever the spine. You shot very close to it. You stunned it really bad.
Yeah, there's enough trauma that
that you took it down, but it was enough for it to regain its footing. And chances are you won't find that animal, because if you didn't hit a vital zone, on a broadside spine shot, and you didn't sever the spine, there's not much vital below and above the spine.
Right.
So, like I say, if you want to incapacitate, it's got to be spine, brain shot. I always go for a spine because it's a lot bigger target. And like killing animals, I always like to do what I call my plan A, plan B shot. I try to, in a perfect world, I always want to shoot with animals slightly quartering to me. I shoot it in the neck for the spine shot, but if I happen to be slightly high or low and miss the spine, the bullet goes into the lung cavity. And so there, I've either got an instant incapacitation, I got a dead animal on the ground right where we're standing, DRT in tactical terms, bang flop in redneck terms.
Yeah.
But if I do miss that spine, the bullet goes right into the lung cavity, and now we've got a loss of blood pressure issue, and the animal, even if it gets up or didn't go down, whichever, not going to go all that far.
I'll go very far. Yeah.
But every now and then, as you said numerous times, you say, well, that guy didn't read combat handguns because he didn't fall down dead. Well, maybe that hog didn't read American Hunter magazine,
yeah.
And you'll get a perfect lung shot, double lung shot, and that hog will go and go and go. Here's a classic example. Yeah. One morning I shot a 140, 150-ish pound sow, just going to get some back straps off of it. Shot it broadside with a 308 from like 60 yards with a 165 grain SST, Hornady SST. A very deadly bullet.
Exceptional bullet. Yeah.
That hog took off and just kept going and kept going and kept going. And he was leaving a blood trail that anybody could follow. Got up to the hog, perfect shoulder shot, double lung, And so I thought, what the hell? And so I'd lean my shooting sticks up against a tree from where I shot. I paced back to my shooting sticks 110 paces.
Wow.
That hog ran, 140, 150 pound hog with a perfect broadside double lung shot. Yeah. Shows you how tough things can be, you know.
And we see that, I tell people, if you watch the surveillance videos where you see people shooting, you realize that a lot of people say, well, so-and-so was shot with a 45 or 357 or whatever, and it didn't work. Well, it's because they didn't hit anything vital. Under stress, most people don't shoot as well as they do when they're not under stress. One of the things that you and I, fall back on and tell people, the one thing about competition shooting is it teaches you kind of how to handle stress.
Yep.
And that's why I tell people it's to your advantage to shoot some competition, USPSA, IDPA, whatever. You can go too far overboard, but I tell people when you finish a stage in an IDPA match and that range officer, safety officer gives you command, unload and show clear. If when you unload your pistol, your hands are shaking a little bit, you got your money's worth.
Because you got that adrenaline shot.
So the other thing I think I see going the other way is this obsession now. You created one, there's a number of pistol shooting skills that have become almost universal. Jeff Cooper's El Presidente, let's face it, you go anywhere on this planet and there's guys that shoot are going to shoot an El Presidente. The other one's the build drill, which you created back in the day, 35
early 80s.
Yeah. So it's basically where you draw a target at 7 yards and you basically are going to shoot 6 shots, and the goal is to shoot it theoretically 3.5 seconds with all good center hits. And that's become kind of a standard of measure. To fact, now we have guys that are arguing, well, I can do it in 2.3 or 2.6, whatever. Again, the time factor, I think, is a kind of bogus in today's.
It all depends on if you're using real carry gear, real carry gun, service, ammo, or you got a race gun, race holster, powder puff loads to the dot side.
And I also say the first one you shoot is the one that counts, not the third, fourth, or fifth one where you got a good run. But anyway, the classmen of guys, well, I can put 6 rounds in the bad guy's center of his chest in 2.9 seconds. And the answer is, no, you can't. And the guys get almost inflamed. Oh, you're questioning my skills and my abilities. And no, I'm explaining to you why it's not wrong. I call it the bee sting factor.
Yeah.
If a yellow jacket lands on your shoulder right now and stings you, you're going to jump.
Oh yeah.
It's involuntary. A hornet, if you've ever been stung by a hornet, I don't care who you are, you're not going to go like that, dude. That thing will move you. And when people get struck with handgun velocity, particularly when there's somebody shooting at them, they can see the gun, they hear they react, not like, ooh, they react violently. So you say, well, I'm going to shoot this target multiple times. And in the training world, I remember here about a decade ago, particularly as a lot of guys were coming back from the Great War on Terror in the Middle East, they were talking about, well, you shoot them to the ground. Yeah, well, in today's world, try to explain that to a grand jury, That doesn't get you very far. But the guy said, well, yeah, I'm going to put 6 rounds right in his chest. No, you're not. You may put the first one. The next one, as he's turning, may be here. By the time of the 3rd or 4th one, you're probably shooting him in the back.
Yeah.
And you've a good chance you're going to miss. So the problem is, because of the bee sting factor, that first shot you shoot is the most critical.
Just like
maybe the second one.
Just like hunting.
Just like hunting. And maybe the second one. But, and by the way, in today's society, with where we're at as a country, as a culture, if you shoot your adversary in the back, and that comes out in the coroner's report, guess how that's going to play? You know, suddenly you're going to be the one judged as being the criminal because you shot him in the back. We live in a society where the video cameras are everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You know, say you're gassing up at the gas station and you're standing there putting gas in your car at 11 o'clock at night. You look around, all of a sudden there are 3 guys coming your way. You think, well, they've got guns in their hands. They pose a threat. I know what's coming. You draw out your blaster. No question my ability, and my question your ability to do the job. But there's surveillance cameras that are going to be videoing that. And if you shoot somebody to the ground, or you're shooting them in the back, and it's on video, and it probably is going to be in most parts of urban America, that changes things dramatically in the outcome. Yeah, you want to survive the encounter, but it's a deal that people don't realize. So this magic today, the big obsession is I want a gun that holds a lot of bullets because I'm going to shoot them a lot. That's not realistic. It's not like shooting in USPSA match where the targets don't move. Number 2, it's not a John Wick movie. That's a friggin' fantasy. I like watching the John Wick movies. They're entertaining.
I do too.
Totally fantasy. If you went into a gunfight like John Wick with that many adversaries, I got bad news for you. You're going to leak a lot when it's over with. So I think the key thing that people need to keep in mind is what they think and expect may not be what really happens. And you've seen it. I know you guide a lot of hunters at the ranch, and I'm sure you've witnessed a good shot can sometimes fool you. A bad shot can often be really ugly as far as the end result. You know, I tell people out where I live, guys say, well, you know, I'm a fast shooter. You shoot an elk in the ass with a 300 Win mag, it's going to run away. I don't care how big the bullet is. On the other hand, you shoot it right behind the shoulder where you're supposed to with a 243.
Yeah.
It may not go down, but it ain't going very far. I mean, it's all bullet placement.
Yeah.
And somehow people think that somehow in a life and death encounter, that volume of fire is going to make up for shot placement, and it simply does not. And remember the bee sting factor. That is a big one. I'm sure you've seen it on critters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, if you don't hit the central nervous system and put it down, you know, bang flop DRT on the spot, you're always shooting at a moving target after them. Always.
Yeah.
They do not stand there and wait for you to shoot a second time.
And I tell people, sadly, a lot of the surveillance videos that people watch are based upon people that are not trained and have any skill. We're seeing 2 people involved in a conflict, both of which have no viable skill.
Yes.
They know how to pull the trigger, and they can make a lot of noise, but that's not something we want to emulate.
Yeah.
And I think from the viewing audience, from the gun guys crowd, it's important to understand it's not magic. It's basically a disciplined effort where you learn how to shoot and learn how to shoot effectively. And that's why you and I both agree. I'll take accuracy over speed any day. Now people, I'm not saying speed's not important. I mean, if I have to time you with a sundial, we both know that's not acceptable. But worrying about tenths of a second or worrying about splits is total crap in the real world. And the guys that tell me, well, I can do a sub 1 second draw, concealed draw. So what? I call it a parlor trick. You can't do it. If you go out in range and practice it and say, look, what I did, I'm going to show you on YouTube my video of my sub-second draws. 2 days later, you can't do it. And I tell people, when you watch folks, like one of the videos we did where you shot the pulse biology drill, if you watch carefully, and you shot that cold, the first draw, you got the gun out, you did the job, but you kind of flubbed the little draw a little bit as getting the garment out of the way. That's the way it is in the real world. So, precise is more important than speed. And I hope that people recognize that. Don't get sucked into this internet squabble and about people who really don't look at the facts and think that somehow speed and a lot of bullets are going to produce the results. You and I are both, shall we say, descendants of the 45 auto.
Yeah.
And we were brought up in the day of Jeff Cooper that hit a guy in the little finger with a 45 hardball and his head will explode. But we know better now.
Yeah.
You carry a 9mm, I carry a 9mm. Still like the 45, still carry them, still shoot them, but not very much anymore because we both understand it's not the gun, it's not even the bullet. Number one is where do you put the round?
And it's where you put the first round.
Bingo. Listen, folks, hope you got something out of this. Give it some thought. Don't accept this blind following that you see in the gun culture sometimes, but people who have never really examined or thought about it or looked at the facts. Make up your own mind. Go to the range. Maintain your proficiency. Stay safe. We'll see you down the road.